In Palestine, Israeli forces bombarded different points in Gaza while waiting for the resumption of ceasefire negotiations in Cairo. In Panama, all is set for Sunday's general elections where over 3 million citizens are called to the polls. And Gambia hosts the 15th summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, calling for an end to Israeli aggression and crimes against the Palestinian people. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Sunday, Israeli forces bombarded different points in the Gaza Strip while waiting for the resumption of ceasefire negotiations in Cairo. In this sense, Wafa news agency reported that residential buildings in Rafah, Deir al-Balah, were targeted by the bombardment. It should be noted that the Israeli genocide continues as on Sunday, a delegation of Hamas continued its contacts with the Egyptian mediators to try to reach a ceasefire in the enclave and a prisoner exchange. In this context, Palestinian resistance sources said that there will be no agreement with Israel without explicit text on a permanent ceasefire. The United Nations denounced that a possible Israeli operation against Rafah could cause the death of thousands of Palestinians, in addition to jeopardizing humanitarian operations in the region. Humanitarian Aid Coordination Office spokesman Jens Lerke said he was concerned about the possibility of any incursion closing the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt. Lerke also assured that the humanitarian agency would do everything possible to ensure the continuity of aid operations, even in the event of an incursion. On Saturday, the director of the UN World Food Programme, Sidney McCain, confirmed that there is a comprehensive famine in the northern Gaza Strip that might spread to the south. According to a report published on the organization's official website, Gaza suffers from severe food shortages and food insecurity after 7 months of Israeli aggression against the Strip. McCain indicated that her statements based on what the program saw on the ground. Humanitarian organizations have warned for months that the Israeli aggression against Gaza has pushed the Strip towards the brink of famine. In the United States, foreign students could be deported for demonstrating in support of the Palestinian cause. Several visa students have been detained, sanctioned, and suspended in recent weeks, and according to authorities, are at risk of having their visas cancelled. All this in the context of the massive demonstrations held across U.S. universities' campuses against the Israeli genocidal war in Gaza. Police authorities have strongly repressed the students' protests. In this regard, local media reported thousands of arrests in the past days. In this context, a group of students from Princeton University started a hunger strike in solidarity with the Palestinian people in Gaza. The striking students said they would only drink water until the following demands are met: total immunity from criminal charges, a total cultural boycott of Israel, and divestment from Israel, along with other demands. Meanwhile, in Cuba, on Friday, the Federation of University Students from Havana University staged a rally in solidarity with the Palestinian people and with U.S. rallying college students. The call for the rally was launched through Telegram. Demonstration students condemned the violent breaking at universities by police, the violation of students' human rights, and the criminalization of pro-Palestinian student protests in the United States. Also, several U.S. universities have held rallies in support of college students strongly repressed by police for demanding a ceasefire in Gaza and the cessation of their government's complicity in the war.
I believe American students, as back in the 1960s when they demonstrated against Vietnam, they are realizing the clear limits of democracy in Western countries, specifically in the United States. Anything that may jeopardize their interests of domination over the world, the interests of their allies, even if the cost of that is a merciless war of extermination against an entire people. Anything that clashes with that will be met with the most brutal repression, arrests, even very severe penal and professional consequences for the future of these youngsters. However, I believe they have grown tired of waiting for a response from their government. I believe they have grown tired of being mere spectators of the tragedy of the Palestinian people and have joined the struggle of hundreds of billions of people around the world who, for decades, but especially since October 7th, have expressed solidarity with the Palestinian people.
This shows the great injustice of that government, which mistreats students when they support or demonstrate for justice for the Palestinian children. It is something very unjust on the part of the U.S. government that shows that imperialism is responsible for what is happening today in Gaza, in all of Palestine, in a conflict that has been going on for over 210 days.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. But the story is coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Sunday, the 2024 general elections take place in Panama. 3,004,083 Panamanians decide on May 5th the political future of that nation in the next 5 years. A polarized vote between the desired social change or the clientelism and transitional models of various governments. Some 3,037 polling stations are enabled with 7,577 voting tables from 7 a.m. local time to 4 p.m. to select 887 public officials in a complex democratic process where it is won by simple majority and there will be no second round. These elections, the new president and vice president of the country, 20 deputies to the Central American Parliament and 71 deputies to the National Assembly are elected. In the midst of a rampant frustration for the performance of the traditional political parties, 7 candidates aspire to replace the worn-out administration of Laurentino Cortizo. For several analysts, the new governors will have to face a weakened economy that drags almost $50 billion of public debt, draft a new constitution, a bankrupt social security fund, the water crisis, and the role of the canal. Also, informality in the labor market, high cost of living, growing irregular migration, corruption cases pending in the justice system, the consequences of the end of metallic mining demanded by the people in the streets in protests that shook the country in 2023, among other challenges.
This election comes as Panama witnesses the largest protests in over 30 years. The social outbursts occurred on October 23rd when the government of Laurentino Cortizo signed a mining concession contract with the Canadian multinational First Quantum for up to 40 years, which led to the reaction of more than 70,000 people in daily protests to demand a Panama free of mining. The fed-up sentiment multiplied when President Laurentino Cortizo spoke on national television to defend the contract. The popular response was massive. The Assembly and the presidency were filled with thousands of people who rejected the agreement, since the mining exploitation would not benefit the region and disturb the natural biome. After that, the government negotiated for months and with abrupt interruptions a contract that would allow the continuity of operations of Minera Panama, but the draft of the new contract lacked popular support.
The president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, spoke during his podcast about one of his country's biggest challenges, water supply. In this way, he highlighted large investments are being made in what he acknowledged as one of the most pressing worries of the population.
Today we are going to talk about the most vital of resources, water. It must be said that in the country considerable efforts are made along with important investments to solve water supply problems, which many times have to do with specific situations that arise at certain times due to the obsolescence of equipment, due to breakdowns. which also occur in this type of technologies, and due to the accumulated aspects of not having been able to make a whole group of investments on time, especially in maintenance. But on the other hand, it is also one of the sectors where there is a greater momentum of investments, and this contrasts with the fact that when one analyzes the opinion of the population, there is a high percentage of dissatisfaction of the population in relation to the water supply, to the leaks, and also to the treatment of sewage.
In this way, the Cuban president said that scientific innovation should be led to tackle people's most pressing problems in the country.
In relation to science and innovation, we must continue to lead scientific research towards innovating on how we provide solutions to the problems we face, and I believe that we must continue to make progress in the area of renewable energy sources, in pumping. And here we have talked about water supply, but I also believe that it is important that we take this pumping system with renewable energy sources to the agricultural irrigation systems, which could thus become independent and not be a burden on the national electric power system at peak hours.
In Haiti, the gangs have stolen several fuel trucks at the Vero oil terminal. The criminals took 10 trucks and also used them as barricade to prevent the dispatch of fuel and the arrival of tanker vehicles at the gas stations. Terminal managers and employees have been safely evacuated from the terminal. In Port-au-Prince, several gas stations remain closed, which makes the fuel shortage situation even worse. In Indonesia, at least 14 people have been killed by floods and landslides on the island of Sulawesi. Local authorities say that since Thursday, rains have hit the province of South Sulawesi, causing landslides. At least 13 sub-districts have been affected with floods up to 3 meters high. Over 1,000 houses in the area are underwater and mud, of which at least 42 have been turned from their foundation.
The rain intensity in South Sulawesi has been very high and caused floods in some areas across some districts. This has happened from May the 2nd to May the 3rd, 2024. In Lu, we have rescued 60 people and found 7 dead victims. We are still collecting information on missing persons. We wish for support and prayer from the people so this search and rescue operation can go well.
In East Africa, heavy rains and floods caused by El Niño weather pattern have forced thousands of people to migrate to other countries. In eastern Kenya, nearly 20,000 people from the Dadaab camp, many of them Somali refugees, who fled drought and the armed conflict in their country, have been displaced again because of rising water levels. Meanwhile, in Burundi, some 32,000 refugees are living in flood-affected areas, many of them forced to stay in their flooded homes. Olga Sahrado, a spokeswoman for the UN Agency for Refugees, said some of the situations forcing people to move around are irreversible, and it would seem they are only getting worse, and that it is the displaced people who are bearing the brunt. We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Gambia hosts the 15th summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, calling for an end to Israeli aggression and crimes against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. The leaders of some 50 countries kicked off the organization's summit on Saturday in the Gambian capital, Banjul. The meeting was attended by a dozen heads of states and government, while other countries were represented by foreign ministers or other envoys. 3 key documents will be presented during the event, which runs until Sunday: a draft Palestinian resolution, a draft Banjul declaration, and the draft outcome document. During his opening speech, the organization's Secretary General, Hussein Ibrahim Taha, condemned the war crimes committed by Israel. Orthodox Christians in Ethiopia attended Easter Mass in churches across the country. Dozens of faithfuls traveled on Good Friday to the Abun Tekle Hamanot Church on the outskirts of the capital to take part in the celebrations. On Saturday, they gathered in churches in Addis Ababa to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus and the end of an almost 2-month fast. During the 55 days leading up to Easter, Orthodox Christians in the African nation fast during a period known as Hodare or Abi Etsome, where they refrain from eating meat and dairy products. Ethiopia has the largest Orthodox population outside Europe. In Germany, authorities suspended firefighting operations at the Diehl metal applications due to environmental pollution. According to the fire department, the operations were interrupted due to the risk of water pollution. Authorities detailed that the plant manufactures anti-aircraft defense systems for Ukraine, and in the surrounding area they built barriers with sandbags to prevent the liquid from spreading and reaching the Tactol Canal. Let's now travel to the Brazilian Amazon to discover one of the main rhythms of Belém do Pará, the city that will host the UN Climate Conference in 2025. The guitarrada is a musical power that emerged from the fusion of indigenous, black, and Caribbean rhythms. Our correspondents Andre Viera and Sebastian Soto with the details.
We are in Belém do Pará, the gateway to the Brazilian Amazon, a land that holds flavors, colors, multiple indigenous languages, stories of indigenous and black resistance, and rhythms that mix the diversity of different regions to form a unique music. One of them is the guitarrada, born in the 1970s.
The guitarrada, besides being a rhythm of Para, is an Amazonian and Caribbean rhythm. The guitarrada was created by Maestro Vieira, who lived in Barcarena, and there, the AM radio waves from the Caribbean were listened to. Rhythms like merengue, cumbia, and boleros were heard in Maestro Vieira played correo in the bandolino. Then with that fusion of playing coro with what he heard on the radio, he created the guitarrada.
Everywhere you go in Belém, you hear music. Created in 2017, the Guitarrada Club brings together every month musicians who showcase the power of Afro, Indian, Caribbean, and Amazonian rhythms.
And here in Para, we see that in addition to the indigenous blend, we also have a lot of mixture with the musicality of the black people. The drum, which is very strong, arrived here in Para. So we are discovering and talking about Amazonian music from several Amazon regions.
It is the sound of the countryside that fills the capital of the state of Pará, aiming to keep connected to the people of the city with the rural and indigenous culture.
I am talking specifically about a culture that has a strong influence from the interior of the Amazon, being reflected within the city. It is an urban culture, it is an Amazonian urban popular music, and part of it comes from the culture of the Riberinos.
One of the features of the guitarrada is the few chords, but with a lot of melodic vibration.
Doing the simplest things sometimes is much more difficult at times, and I think here in Para we do that very well, playing the counter tempos, making nice melodies with a few chords, and making people dance who never stop.
The Amazon is connected through music, because music and rhythms are a kind of base for all the people around here.
The eyes of the world are focused on Belém, which will host the first United Nations Climate Conference to be held in the Amazon. In the knowledge of colors, resistance, and stories of these people, there are practices that can save the world.
Andre Viera e Sebastian Soto, teleSUR, Brasil.
And on Saturday, Real Madrid won its record-extending 36th Spanish League title after increasing its lead over second-place Girona to an insurmountable 13 points, with 4 games remaining. Madrid reclaimed its domestic crown after beating Cádiz 3-0 earlier Saturday, and Barcelona then lost 4-2 at Girona. Madrid fans thought they would need to wait for the next game day to celebrate, as Barcelona dominated Girona 1-2 during much of the game. Yet in 10 minutes time, Girona came back in spectacular fashion and leapfrogged Barcelona and pushed its Catalan rival into third place at 14 points behind Madrid. Los Blancos now have a chance to add to its unequal 14 European Cups as it hosts Bayern Munich in the Champions League on Wednesday, with their semi-final evenly balanced after a 2-2 first leg draw. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.